You're not in this time, not even in your room. Close your eyes, slow your breath, and let the world around you fade. Let yourself drift calmly and quietly back through time. You wake up to 0.5 million years ago, your eyes open to stone walls and earth beneath your skin. Your body aches from sleep on a bed of leaves. You don't know fire yet, but before this night ends, you will. You woke up to a sound you had never heard before. A deep crack, like the earth splitting apart. Then a flash, not like the sun, brighter, whiter, sharper. It split the night sky open. You scrambled from your bed of leaves in the cave. The wind howled through the trees outside. Then came the roar. Not the roar of a beast, not the voice of a storm, something else. You ran to the edge of the cave, heart pounding. The air smelled sharp, bitter, like burned hair. And then you saw it. A tree, the tall one near the river, was glowing. Not with moonlight, not with stars, but with something alive. The top of the tree had turned to light. Bright, orange-red light, jumping and licking and crackling. The branches twisted and dropped, black and smoking. You had never seen such a thing. No one had. The fire danced where the lightning had struck, climbing down the bark like it had legs. The grass at the tree's feet caught its necks, then the fallen leaves. It moved fast to fast. You couldn't speak. You couldn't even think. You only stared. You watched it move across the field like a living thing. It jumped from grass to grass, from dry twig to dry twig, spreading without feet or breath or voice. You took a step forward, then stopped. The ground was warm, the light too bright. It was beautiful and terrible. You had seen death. You had seen storms, but never something that looked alive and wasn't. This thing didn't have teeth, but it bit. It didn't have eyes, but it saw you. It didn't have hands, but it reached. You stayed hidden behind a rock as the fire hissed and crackled into the night. It snapped the bones of the forest. It turned green leaves into black dust. It lit up the sky and made shadows move in strange ways. Animals ran from it. Birds screamed and flew. Even the wind seemed scared. You waited, long after the storm passed, long after the fire had eaten its fill. Then silence. Smoke hung in the air like a ghost. The fire was gone. But your fear wasn't. The next day, you returned to the burned field. Everything smelled strange, sharp, and heavy. The tall tree was black now. Its bark had peeled away. Its inside was cracked. You stepped carefully, your toes pressing into ash. Then you saw it, a low pile of glowing red bits. No flames now, just soft, breathing light, like coals. You poked one with a stick. It lit up again. You leapt back, startled. But the stick, it was glowing at the tip. The heat, the light, it was still alive. You grabbed the stick with shaky hands and ran back to your cave. You didn't know why. You just knew it was important. Maybe it was power. Maybe it was danger. Maybe it was both. Inside the cave, you placed the glowing stick on the ground and watched. Its light made the stone walls dance. It felt warm on your skin. You added dry grass near it. The grass blackened. You leaned closer. You blew gently. A flame, you gasped. It grew fast. It coughed a little smoke, hissed, and then it was standing, tall, red, hungry. The fire had followed you home. You fed it grass, then a few dry twigs. It crackled happily, but the moment you turned away, it leaned toward the wall. It wanted more. It scared you, how fast it grew. But you couldn't stop. Something inside you wanted to understand it, not just survive it. Use it, keep it, even if it didn't belong. That night, you sat in your cave, not sleeping. You stared at it, and it stared back. You tried to make more like it. You found stones near the burnt tree. One was sharp, the other smooth. You hit them together, then again. A flash, a tiny spark. Your breath caught. You tried again. A spark landed on dry moss. It smoked. It died. You tried again, then. A red glow. You blew it gently and the flame rose. You had done it. Should have made you happy. But it didn't. Your hands shook. You stepped away. Because now it was alive and you had no idea how to stop it. You watched it rise and fall. You fed it. You feared it. Moved like a beast. It ate like one. But it didn't sleep. It could grow huge, die in seconds. It had no rules. No eyes. No heart. But it felt like it was watching you, and somewhere deep inside your chest, a cold thought came. What have I brought into this world? It didn't sleep. You waited for it to die during the night. You thought maybe it would burn everything it wanted and go away. But when you woke, it was still there, glowing softly like the eyes of something half awake. It had shrunk, so you fed it again. Some dry moss, a stick, just as strong, just as hungry. You didn't look at it the same way anymore. You didn't think it was a gift now. You thought maybe it was a mistake, because it never stopped wanting. You sat there with your knees pulled to your chest, watching it. It lit the cave with colors you weren't used to seeing at night. Red and yellow and gold. Colors that didn't belong after sunset. Sometimes the shadow looked like you. Other times it didn't. It moved even when you didn't. You whispered to yourself, asking what this thing was. But no answer came, but it listened. Every crackle felt like a response. Every hiss felt like breath. You tried to move it outside. You took a burning stick and planted it in the dirt near the cave entrance. Maybe it would stay there. Maybe it wanted to be out, not in. But wind came, just a breeze, and it died, so you lit another and tried again. You built a pile of sticks outside, shaped like a nest. You blew gently. You waited. The flame caught. It danced up, then a sudden gust, and again it was gone. Back inside the cave. The coals were still alive, still warm, still waiting. You realized something then. The fire wasn't meant to live out there. It needed shelter like you. It needed to be fed, protected. It started to change the way you lived. Nights used to be quiet, still, full of sounds from far away, owls, water, wind. Now the cave was never quiet. There was always the crackling, the popping, the shifting glow of the flame. You stopped, listening to the wind. You stopped hearing the owls. The fire was louder than everything. You noticed something else. Animals stopped coming near. You used to hear footsteps outside the cave. Sometimes a deer, sometimes something bigger. Now, nothing. The fire had chased them all away. At first, it felt good. You weren't as scared at night. You didn't worry about glowing eyes in the dark. But then you realized the meat was harder to find. The animals didn't just move from your cave. They moved from your land. Even the birds. And you were alone. You tried to speak to the fire. You didn't know why. Maybe because you'd been silent too long. Maybe because you were afraid of what silence might mean. You asked it where it came from. You asked it what it wanted. You asked it if it would hurt. The fire never answered. But it watched. It always watched. You could feel it when you turned your back. When you lay down to sleep, its light danced behind your closed eyelids. You dreamed of it sometimes, a mouth without a face, calling you in. And once, you woke to find it had moved. You had fallen asleep without feeding it. But a spark had jumped from the pile. It had landed on dry grass nearby. Now a second flame burned near your tools. You smothered it with your hands, coughing from the smoke. Your palms burned. You sat there for a long time after, staring at the fire's main body. It didn't care. It just kept going. That was when you began to fear it deeply. It didn't need you anymore. Still, you kept feeding it. Why? You didn't know. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe love. Maybe habit. Maybe because it was the only thing that stayed. Days passed. Then something strange happened. A man from your tribe came. You hadn't seen him in many moons. He had wandered off in winter, searching for food. He stood at the mouth of your cave, blinking. He saw the fire before he saw you. He froze. You watched him, not moving. He took one step back, then another. You called to him. A simple sound, your name for him, a greeting. But he didn't reply. He turned and ran. He thought you were cursed. You didn't chase him. You just sat back down beside the flame. It swayed slightly, as if pleased. Time passed. Seasons shifted. You used the fire to dry meat, to boil water, to see at night. But it never became a friend. It was useful, but not safe, familiar, but not trusted, close, but never warm in your heart. You carried it with you sometimes, glowing coals inside a shell of dry bark, wrapped in leaves. You brought it to places where you hunted, where you dug for roots. You made fire again in the woods, then in the hills, then by the stream, and every time a strange feeling came over you, like you were planting something, not life, but power. Then one day it got away from you. You had built a larger fire by the river. You turned your back. A wind came, it caught the flames and threw them into the grass. You ran to stomp them out, but it was too late. The fire ran wild, fast and loud. It ate the bushes, the small trees. It leapt the river like a beast. You screamed, not words, just fear. You watched the hills catch fire. You watched the sky go black. And for the first time, you saw clearly you were not in control. You had never been. That night, sitting far from the ruins, you held a small, flickering flame in your hand. You stared at it, quiet. It glowed calmly, innocently. But you knew what it was now. Not a friend, not a god, not a monster. Something in between, something older than words, something that would never die. And you understood that no matter how far you walked, how high you climbed, how deep you hid, as long as fire lived, the world would never be the same again. And now, the flame sleeps, so does the forest and the sky. You lie down, your hands curled near your chest, the last flicker warming the cave walls. The night is no longer dark, but you close your eyes anyway. The world outside fades, the fire hums softly beside you, quiet now, but still alive. You are not afraid, not anymore, because you were there. The moment it began, the moment you discovered fire and feared it, and still, you stayed. Good night.